I wasn't planning to leave my home that summer. The roof had held up for 42 years, through storms, heavy snow, and Harold falling off at once while fixing the antenna. But that last storm ripped off half the shingles like it was nothing, and the insurance company said they'd need weeks before repairs could even begin. I didn't panic. I'd been through worse. But it was Ethan, my son, who called me first. "Mom, why don't you just come stay with us for a while?" he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "You shouldn't be alone in a house with no roof." He sounded sincere, and maybe I wanted to believe him. It had been a long time since Ethan sounded like my boy, not just a man too busy for phone calls or Mother's Day brunch. I told him I'd think about it, but the truth is, my heart had already packed a suitcase. They lived just 40 minutes away, in a house I knew well, because I'd bought it. It was my wedding gift to them, back when Harold was still alive and we believed that giving meant love. I never asked for it back, never tried to interfere. I just hoped they'd build a good life there. When I pulled into their driveway, no one came out to help. That should have told me something. Sierra opened the door with her phone in hand and barely made eye contact. "You're early," she said, stepping aside. Ethan was upstairs putting the twins down. He gave me a quick hug when he came down, already distracted. "We set up the guest room," he said. "It's not much, but it'll do." He was right. It wasn't much. A futon pushed against a wall, no closet space, and boxes stacked in every corner. But I smiled anyway. "It's fine," I said softly. "I'm just grateful to be here." And I was. I wanted to believe this could be a new beginning, a chance to be close again, to matter. I didn't need luxury. I just wanted to feel useful, feel like family. What I didn't know then was that I wasn't moving into a home. I was walking into a space where I was already being measured for how little I'd be allowed to matter. At first, I told myself it was just adjustment, new rhythms, new routines. I tried not to notice that no one ever asked if I was comfortable on that futon, or if I needed more than a single shelf in the hallway closet. I made do. I always have. I kept the house tidy, washed the dishes when Sierra forgot them overnight, folded laundry. Never mind that half of it wasn't mine. I cooked dinner most nights. I figured that's what mothers do. We help. We stay useful. But there were moments, small ones, that started to sting. Like the time I was cleaning out the fridge and Sierra walked in, glanced at me and said, "Can you leave my stuff alone next time? I meal prep." Her tone was flat, not angry, but not kind either, just dismissive. Or the day I offered to pick up the twins from daycare, she paused, gave me that tight smile she always wears like a mask and said, "Oh, no need, we've got a system." I started to feel like a shadow in their house, present but not seen. Ethan didn't say much either, always working late, always on his phone. When he was home, he looked exhausted. I asked him one night if everything was okay. He nodded and said, "Just the usual. Life's a lot right now." And I nodded too, though I wanted to scream, "I know, I've lived it. I've held more than you ever had to carry." One evening, I stayed up late folding towels in the laundry room, trying to feel useful. The door was cracked just enough that I heard Sierra's voice in the kitchen. "I know she means well," she said, "but she's not really helping. She just hangs around." Ethan didn't correct her, didn't defend me, just went quiet. I stood there, towel in hand, and felt something inside me fall, just a little. Not enough to shatter, yet, but enough to echo. I'd come hoping to be close again. Instead, I was starting to realize I was tolerated, not welcomed. And that realization, though whispered, was louder than anything I'd heard in years. It started with a voicemail from the bank. Just a routine call, they said, to confirm a change to my credit file. I almost deleted it, figured it was spam. But something made me call back. Maybe it was the way the woman said my full name. No miss or ma'am, just Lillian Monroe, like a file number. When I finally reached someone, they told me I was listed as a co-signer on a personal loan, $45,000, signed 5 months ago. I sat on the edge of that futon, staring at the wall, my hand still clutching the phone. I hadn't signed anything in years. My name hadn't touched a loan application since Harold passed. There had to be a mistake, but there wasn't. The application listed my old address, my social security number, even my maiden name spelled correctly. The signature looked familiar, but slightly off, like someone had practiced it too many times. I didn't cry. Not then. Instead, I opened Ethan's laptop the next time he left it on the table. I didn't go digging. Just one glance at the email tab. There it was. Confirmation emails, wire transfers, a few labeled crypto exchange, and market loss. I didn't understand the technical stuff, but I understood what mattered. He hadn't just borrowed money in my name. He'd lost it. All of it. And he hadn't said a word. That night, I lay on the futon listening to the hum of the baby monitor and the muffled sounds of Sierra laughing at something on her phone. I stared at the ceiling like it might give me answers, but all I felt was this terrible stillness in my chest. It wasn't the debt that broke me. It was the quiet, the knowing, the fact that my son had chosen to steal from me and still sat across from me at dinner like nothing had happened. He didn't just betray my trust. He made me feel small, powerless, unseen. And in that silence, I felt something crack. Not loud, not messy, just a slow internal shatter. I had given everything. And now, I had nothing left to give. The next morning, I put on my good slacks and the blouse with the pearly buttons and drove to see Carol, the only lawyer I ever trusted, and a friend from church who still owed me a favor or two. I told her I needed to know exactly what I owned. She pulled up the documents for the house. I half expected to find it fully under Ethan's name by now. But no, there it was, plain as day. 70% ownership still belonged to me. Apparently, when Harold and I gifted them the home, we never finalized the full transfer. It had seemed like a formality at the time. We just wanted them settled. Now it felt like a lifeline I hadn't realized I'd left hanging. Carol looked at me and said gently, "You have rights here, Lillian, more than you think." I didn't respond right away. My hands were folded in my lap, fingers clenched so tightly the tips had gone white. Rights. That word sat heavy in my chest. I hadn't felt like I had any in a long time. Not in their house, not in my family, not in my life. That night back on the futon, I didn't sleep. I made a list instead. Every dish I'd washed, every lunch packed, every hour spent folding clothes that didn't belong to me, every dollar paid for a mortgage I didn't live under. And then I wrote, loan in my name, without my consent, $45,000. I stared at that number for a long time. Then I got up, quietly. I didn't wake anyone. I packed my suitcase, the same one I'd brought when I first arrived, still tucked under the futon, still holding the hope I came with. Before I left, I slid a sealed envelope under Ethan's bedroom door. Inside, a printed letter from Carol, notification of formal intention to reclaim my legal share of the house. No anger, no explanation, just my name, my signature, my turn to decide what mattered. By sunrise, I was home. My home. Dusty, quiet, and honest. No more pretending. I wasn't just leaving their house, I was finally stepping back into my own. The first morning back in my own home, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of weak coffee and just listened. No cartoons blaring, no footsteps overhead, no one asking where the clean socks were, just quiet. Not the kind that stings, like when no one calls on your birthday. This was different. It was full, peaceful, like a room finally breathing again. I spent the next few days cleaning, not because it was dirty, but because I needed to reclaim the space. I wiped down the counters Harold once leaned on. I aired out the closets that still smelled like winter. I opened every window. Then I opened a new bank account, one no one else knew about. I transferred what I had left. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I canceled the shared card Ethan used for emergencies. I deleted the saved logins. I called the bank and flagged the fraudulent loan. The woman on the phone was kind. She called me Mrs. Monroe and said I wasn't the first parent to deal with this kind of betrayal. It didn't make it easier, but it made me feel less alone. That weekend, I found my old sewing machine up in the attic. It hadn't been touched since before Harold got sick. The cord was brittle, the cover dusty, but when I plugged it in, it still hummed like it remembered me. I started small, patching towels, hemming old pants. Then I stitched together a tote bag from leftover fabric. I posted a photo online, mostly just to see if I still knew how. Someone messaged me that same night. "This reminds me of my grandmother's sewing. Can I order too?" I cried. Not because of the money, but because someone saw value in my hands again. I didn't tell Ethan where I was. He sent 2 texts. I read them, didn't reply, not out of anger, but because there was nothing left to explain. I hadn't disappeared. I had simply come home. To myself. 3 weeks passed. No calls, no visits, just silence. But this time, the quiet didn't scare me. It felt earned, like a space I had carved out for myself, breath by breath. Then, one Tuesday evening, I heard a knock. I peeked out the window. Ethan stood on the porch, slouched, thinner than before, eyes sunken. He wasn't carrying flowers, just a folder. I opened the door but didn't invite him in right away. He looked at me like he wasn't sure he deserved to. "I'm not here to ask for anything," he said. I want to show you what I've been doing." Inside the folder, a budget spreadsheet, payment plan, a signed letter from a financial counselor, and a separation of joint accounts from Sierra. "I started working at the hardware store," he said, "evenings and weekends. I sold the car. I go to those meetings you mentioned. Debt recovery, accountability. I'm trying, Mom." He wasn't asking me to fix it. He was showing me he could. For the first time, I saw a flicker of the boy I once raised, the one who saved half his Halloween candy for his sister, who walked me home from church without being asked. I nodded and went into the kitchen. I returned with an envelope. Inside, a one-time check to cover the past due balance on the house, a printed agreement outlining expectations. A short note. "This is the only time. If you fall, you get up on your own. I'm not your net anymore." He read it. His eyes watered, but he didn't argue. When he left, I didn't cry. I didn't second guess. I locked the door behind him and returned to my quiet house, my sewing machine, my tea still warm on the table. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like someone's backup plan. I felt like someone who had finally, fully come back to life. If this story felt familiar to you, even just a little, you're not alone. Too many of us give everything we have to family, only to be told it's not enough. But you deserve more than silence. You deserve peace, dignity, and respect. Have you ever been made to feel invisible in your own family? Did you ever walk away quietly, not because you wanted to, but because you had to? I'd love to hear your story. Share it in the comments if you feel safe to do so. Let's remind each other that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. And if you're still in that silence, still waiting to be seen, just know, your worth was never up for debate.